Hello everyone! Today I want to share with you some of the biggest benefits of retiring in Thailand, discuss with you different budget scenarios, and talk about how long 250,000 US dollars could last you in Thailand. Make sure to stick around to the end where I share 3 money tips when preparing to retire. Let's jump into it, shall we? First up is the topic of why so many people are choosing to live in Thailand. For this section, there are really 3 main things, the big 3 you could say. First is that you can choose both the pace and lifestyle for yourself. Do you want endless partying and nightlife? Well, that's easy for sure in Thailand. Do you want a slower pace with less crowds? Okay. Also not a problem. You can head to the northern parts of Thailand such as Chiang Mai. Do you prefer a bustling city life or spend endless hours walking or laying on the white sandy beaches? Really, it is up to you, with the flexibility to choose the pace and type of life your heart desires. Second, I'm not joking when I say that you get to experience a very rich and vibrant culture. I was blown away by the vast amount of beautiful temples. The people are very kind, upbeat, and tend to not over-worry about small inconveniences. The food is also primarily Thai food, but it's so exciting to try out with all the varieties and flavors. And third, being able to live on less money but get more in return. In America, where I'm from, the cost just to get by keeps going up and up. From inflation on everyday goods to rent and the housing market. So deciding to retire abroad in a cheaper cost of living country is a smart choice. Here are the top 10 highest cost of living states in the USA. Hawaii is $55,491 US dollars per year, which is about $4,642 of expenses each month. Keep in mind that these are averages and only factor in costs for housing, healthcare, taxes, food, and transportation. In reality, many people are actually spending more if you factor in other expense categories. So that's why I want to share another statistic with you. The average household in the United States spends roughly $61,334 a year on expenses, and roughly 34.9% of spending, or $1,784 a month, is dedicated to housing costs. So let's take that number, 61,334 divided by 12, and it's actually about $5,000 in expenses per household each month. Again, this is an average number. Of course, there will be households that spend more or less, but it goes to show that the cost of living is not considered low in the USA. And unfortunately, a lot of spending happens when people go into consumer debt. More to come on how to combat this later when preparing for retirement. Just remember though that in Thailand, your money stretches much further. The cost of living is generally much lower compared to Western countries, and that means that your purchasing power increases. It also means that typically you can retire earlier with less money saved up, but of course that will come down to your lifestyle preferences and budget while living in Thailand. So let's talk about that then. How much money do you actually need in Thailand? Similar to being able to choose your pace of life, you also get to choose how luxurious your lifestyle will be, aka your spending. Do not worry though, friends. Due to the low cost of living, you can still live a comfortable lifestyle on less money. So let's talk about 2 different budget scenarios. One person, let's say Bob, wants to live a comfortable lifestyle in Thailand. Eat out often, not fine dining per se, but mostly eating street food or going to the food courts. He also enjoys getting massages, but doesn't mind living in an apartment outside of downtown. Many people are living like Bob and loving life in Thailand for cheap too. So let's have this be the lower, more modest budget, which is about $1,500 a month. There are people living even cheaper, but it'll come down to your spending and your location. Rent, for example, can range anywhere from $3,000 to over $1,000 a month. So we can see that you can really live whatever lifestyle fits your budget. So $1,500 US dollars for a comfortable lifestyle. Now let's move on to Jill, who loves the entertainment scene, eating at high-end restaurants, buying imported brands and goods, and wants to live in a larger, more luxurious space. The high budget for this lifestyle really starts around $2,000 and goes up from there. For the purposes of this video and the calculations we will use shortly, let's say $2,500 for the higher budget. At the end of the day, the budget really comes down to your financial means and your personal preferences. So how long can 250,000 US dollars last you in Thailand? Low versus high, or cheap versus luxurious budget? One of the best and easiest ways to go about this is to use a reliable calculator online to see how long your money could potentially last you in retirement. I've become a big fan of the calculator on fidelitybank.com, but today I want to try out a different one that I also really like from NerdWallet. So let's say that you've saved up $250,000 in your retirement accounts, such as brokerage accounts, IRAs, 401ks. My wife and I are big fans of investing in the S&P 500, which has a great track record of 11% annual rate of return, or around around 8% adjusted for inflation. Those are averages since around the 1950s. So for our calculation, let's use 7% to be more safe for our annual investment return rate. Keep in mind that it could be lower for some years and higher in other years, but we'll use it as the average for over the years. Okay, so let's look at the low versus high budget to see how long your money can last. If you take out $1,500 a month for your expenses, have that $250K saved up, and that 7% rate of return, your money could last you a whopping 51 years. Pretty crazy, right? Moving on to the high budget. Keeping the same amount saved at $250K, 7% rate of return, but withdrawal amount changed from $1,500 to $2,500. Your money certainly doesn't last as long, 12 years to be precise. The nice thing here is that you can play around with this calculator to try out different scenarios. For example, you could keep the $2,500 withdrawal amount, but just increase your total savings amount from $250,000 to higher. For example, $380,000 would last 31 years. Or you could keep the total amount saved up at $250,000 but change the monthly withdrawal amount. One more thing worth mentioning is that the numbers covered just barely do not factor in tax rates. Depending on whether you have pre-tax or tax-deferred accounts, you may need to pay taxes upon taking withdrawals in retirement. With the NerdWallet calculator online, you can also put in estimated tax rates too, which is super nice. I will leave a link for you to check it out in the description below. So what are some steps you can take now to prepare to retire abroad? I'll break it down into 3 of the most important steps one could take. Number 1, it starts with gaining an understanding of how much money you'll need in retirement. The calculator I shared just barely is a great way to find out how much a certain amount of money could potentially last you in retirement. Other methods to consider are the 25 times rule or the 4% rule to get an idea of how much you need to save up. Number 2, get healthy financially. Remember that we are all in different financial boats, metaphorically speaking. So a great place to start is taking inventory of where you're at now with the ways you spend, save, and or invest money. No matter the situation you're currently in, it's important to create a money plan and start by taking small actions on a consistent basis. A large part of that plan should be getting out of bad consumer debt. 2 popular strategies that you could use are the debt snowball or the debt avalanche method. Feel free to check out other videos on my channel where I dive more into these strategies. My wife and I started our Take Back Control money journey as young college students. We have since hit Coast Fire, which has allowed us the flexibility to move abroad and enjoy life in Asia with our 2 children. It doesn't come without effort though, and some degree of sacrifice. But I like to think of it as a healthy and balanced diet. It's okay to have sweets from time to time, such as it's fine to spend money or wants or things we really like from time to time. But it's crucial to get down the basics of budgeting, saving, and investing to make up the most of our financial diet. And step number 3, become prepared for the worst case scenario. The last thing that anyone would want is to run out of money, especially if it happens overseas. To help prevent this, I think it's important to create multiple sources of income. This applies to both now and in retirement. Try not to rely solely on one thing like investments in the stock market or social security benefits. For me, money comes in from different sources such as rental income, dividends, and business. I also qualify for social security payments, so I'm looking forward to that once I hit retirement age and taking withdrawals from my stock market accounts. Another way to prepare yourself for the worst case scenario is to have a backup savings. This can cover your living expenses in case of an emergency. This money is typically held in a high yield savings account. That way, if you're taking withdrawals from investment accounts in the stock market and there's an economic recession or downturn, instead of continuing to take that money out of the stock market, you can instead rely upon your emergency fund in a high yield savings account. To see more videos about pursuing a life of financial peace with tips on retiring abroad, please click that subscribe button and I will catch you next video. Bye bye.